Hey all. I'm here with two friends of Kurt's. Some of you already know Patrick from numerous podcasts that we've done. And then John Purkey was also a friend of Kurt's. A lot of you have probably seen his channel. And it's so great to have you two here together. And this is the first time you're well, you met in the past, but this is the first time you're reconnecting. Is that correct?
Yeah, we met at the off ramp. There was a
Yeah, briefly, but
yeah, very
oh,
briefly.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
at the
what I was thinking is we may have met at Cellophane Square.
oh,
That's what I was thinking when you worked
very
there.
possible.
You
Yeah,
know,
I
I
worked at Cellophane Square, and
and the
then
U District.
I worked at the U District very briefly here and there, in sporadic spots, and then they moved me to the Bellevue store, and I worked at the Bellevue store for like a solid year. But or I don't know how long it was, but yeah, anyway, I worked at the U District store on and off for a while. It's just like,
Cool.
little bits and pieces. So I was a kid, so
Yeah, for record buying in Tacoma, well, the Tower Records in Tacoma would get in imports, but it was nothing like the Tower Records in Seattle, where it
oh
would be
yeah.
like amazing. Well, so we would go up to
Yeah.
Seattle, Cellophane Square, um, uh, well,
After 1990,
Tower, of course. But then there was what was the other? There was another. There was another record store
well,
on University
there's
Avenue.
exotic imports on Third that Kurt and
There
I
was another
went
one.
to.
I can't.
Um,
My brother would remember, but so we go up there because there would
yeah,
be very specific, like really
yeah.
hard to find records, and we literally like would buy, every cent we would make, which wasn't very much. We
I worked
mow
at
our
Tower
grandma's
from.
lawn, take all that money, all that
Yeah.
$25 and buy like, two records or actually
Oh
probably three
yeah.
records.
I worked at
But
Tower from 1990 on. So if it was
that's
before
crazy.
90, I would have been at Cellophane. If it was after 90, I would have been at Tower. Yeah,
I worked at,
and
at Tower Records for a brief time in Tacoma, and like for probably about 9 months, from about
yeah.
1990 through 91. Short
Wow.
shifts.
Yeah. Yeah, so literally we worked at Tower at the same time, different
Yeah,
towers, but yeah.
yeah,
And I didn't go to the Tacoma Tower too often. That's the Tacoma one, right? It
yeah.
was that way. Yeah, yeah. I didn't go to that one too often, but that wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about what shows we saw, what Nirvana
So
shows that we both saw. What
I
shows do you
think
remember being?
my first one was so I'm friends with Scott and Scott, the Scott Sutherland and Scott Vanderpool in chemistry
Yeah,
set.
yeah,
And so they played at the Central Tavern with Nirvana really early with some other drummer. I don't know, maybe I don't know who the drummer was. It wasn't Chad, it was some other person. Or so
I
I
think
think I
Chad
remember.
played the only. I think he played the only show at the Central. I'm almost positive about that.
Chad.
There wasn't any other drummers that played that early with them
Okay,
in
yeah,
Seattle.
then
Yeah, probably was Chad.
maybe I saw some other show with them. My guitarist in my band went to Olympia to go to school, so went to Evergreen. So
Yeah,
I was also down in Olympia a lot. So when Kurt and I met in 87, 88-ish, he was living, I think, in Olympia at that point, and then
yeah,
moved to Tacoma, and then like it was just, bouncing
yeah,
around.
yeah. Um,
So I saw them at the Central. I saw them at like the Phoenix Underground. I saw them at the OK Hotel, the Motorsports Garage.
yeah,
I saw them at, I think, I'm trying to remember. I saw them a bunch of places. I basically it
cool.
was like, yeah, I tried to, like I said, the other thing. I was in a band and you saw your friends and they saw your shows and Kurt came to one of my shows. I can't remember which one, but He totally came. It was actually at the Central. He came to one of our shows at the Central, and yeah. Anyways, I'm sort of spinning off, but yeah, often I would know someone else in the other band, like Chemistry Set was playing with them, and there's Nirvana, and then after I knew Kurt, first time I saw them, I didn't know Kurt, and we met at a party, and then from then on, and we exchanged numbers at some point, so he would call me or like randomly, like, hey, leave it, you know, we're playing so and so. So
Yeah,
whatever.
art. Yeah, yeah, we definitely. It sounded like hung out with them more like after their fame than like I became friends
A
with him
little more.
earlier. Like
Yeah.
87 through like
Uh,
well, really through about nine until they became famous, and then it was like barely
yeah.
even barely
It was
even
like
talked to him. We only talked to him like twice. I mean, after that,
88, 89. Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, it was
yeah.
88, 89 when we first started really hanging out occasionally because my birth mother had a house in Woodinville and it was kind of away from it all. So when he could sort of like, jet out there, or we would jet out there, like we would go hang out somewhere, meet maybe even in Seattle, and then go hang out at her place, and then she'd truck us all back and whatever. Um, but that was only a few times, and then around the time I started working at Tower, since I had an apartment downtown, it was really convenient, and that was when uh really when right when they started to, like you said, when they started to get famous, like when they had the practice at the Satchel Space, we started to hang out like more frequently. And yeah, and I think I, as I said before in other things, I didn't really realize it at the time, but I guess it was a bit of an escape for him, a place to hide away. At one point or two, he literally was hiding away from Courtney at my place. So, just kind of like need a place to just, hang out and listen to records and just sort of just, chill out, whatever, talk, just be a person, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
right on.
you used to, what did you guys do when you were like where was he living when you guys were hanging out?
Well, to make a long story short, I knew Tracy Miranda a little bit
Oh, okay.
before they got together. So um, Tracy's Tracy's friend, kind of boyfriend, was named Kurt Flansburgh in
Oh yeah, yeah.
1985,
Yeah.
86.
Kurt
Anyway,
had mentioned that her
sang,
previous was
Kurt
named
sang
Kurt.
in, yeah, Kurt sang in my brother's band, The Grind. Actually, I played
Oh,
drums and they practiced in my bedroom. So
oh, that's
Tracy
awesome.
Miranda would come over with Kurt, and they'd watch band practice.
Cool.
Anyway, so I had known Tracy before, and shortly after I saw them play at Skid Row, I mean, instantly I asked Kurt if they
Cool.
had a demo tape. He said, "Ah, we're going to be recording something," and then I found out that they lived together, like Tracy and anyway, to make a long story again as short as possible, because
No,
that's
you're
why I wrote
good.
the book. I mean, it's
I love
like
it.
anyway. So at one point, Kurt and Chris came to see Subvert play. It was at the Community World Theater, and they asked me to join the band, but I was already
Oh,
in Subvert. So this is before they were Nirvana.
Nirvana, yeah. Yeah.
Like um, right right after Chad. I mean, not like before Chad, after um, what's his name? Drummer, the first drummer. I can't think of his
Yeah,
name.
Wasn't Dave there a different Dave?
Yeah. Dave from Helltrout. Dave.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was in.
yeah.
So
I
he
think
he
I
joined
saw
the band
him
shortly
play.
after.
He's the guy I saw play somewhere with once at least. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think.
So when my parents got divorced, my mom moved to the Olympia area, and that was
Oh,
like
okay.
in 1988.
Mm,
So
sure.
literally, I graduated high school and I was out. Like my band Subvert was the most important thing in my life. But I became friends with Kurt at that
Mm.
point. Pretty good friends, like in
Cool.
contact, many phone calls, and I'd go down there every chance I got. I mean, if they weren't on tour and I was in
Yeah.
the area, yeah, we'd hang out for sure. Um, and yeah, you know, I was thinking about this. I always felt like he had more friends back then than I
Me
realized
too.
he didn't have. He did,
Me too.
Mikey Nelson and Dylan. I remember seeing
Yeah.
Dylan come by. I didn't know Dylan really at
I
all. I
didn't
just
either.
talked to him. But Mikey
Same.
Nelson, who was in fits of depression, he was a friend.
Mhm.
Like me and Kurt would go visit Mikey a couple different
Sure.
times. And
Yeah.
Mike passed away a few years
Oh.
ago. But
Oh, I didn't
Mikey
know
and
that.
then Matt Lukin
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
by a
Totally.
couple times. Of course,
Fucking
Chris.
love Matt Lukin. He's
Um,
the best. He's so
it's like we
insane.
Toby Vale lived
Yes.
upstairs.
Uh-huh.
So Kurt and Tracy lived around the side of the house. Like people always talk about Kurt and Tracy living when you see the house, the upstairs apartment. But if
Yeah.
they lived there a very short period of time, they lived around the side. That was the little
Yeah.
apartment in the side.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the one place I visited once when I was in Olympia. It was a little house, but it was not upstairs. Everyone said upstairs, so I'm like, I don't know where I was because it wasn't upstairs. It was, like you said, around in a corner on this,
yeah,
like inside, like
yeah.
maybe that's the kitchen or something like
You
that. I
walk
don't know.
in as the kitchen, and then it
Yeah,
was it was really like I loved going over there, and the animals. Like I
yeah,
love animals. I mean
yeah,
all animals, but they had like rabbits and birds and
yes,
cats, and and like it was like a little zoo in there, and
totally.
it smelled
Yep,
like a pet
smelled like
store.
good one too.
Kind of.
Totally, yep, yep,
Yeah. Yeah, well,
yep.
okay, that's a question. So at the house where they lived when in Hollywood and Seattle, what kind of pets did Kurt have then?
I think a cat in the Hollywood one, and the this was not the Lake Washington one where he died. There was a different Lake Washington house. I don't know how long they had it. And I
Yeah.
think maybe I want to say a dog. I don't. God, I feel terrible that I can't remember. And
Oh,
maybe a cat. I should remember because, like, they would always be up in my lap and everything. It was Cat, the kitten. He had a kitten or something, I think, in the Hollywood one. God, I wish I could remember a little bit better. Um, I want to say a cat, and I'm maybe a cat and a dog at the other place, but I'm not sure about the dog. And I don't think Courtney liked the animal at the sorry, at the Lake Washington place. Just
oh.
my memory, just a random memory, sorry. I think she whatever animal it was, I think it was a dog. God, I wish I could remember. Sorry, I'm totally
Oh, huh.
The other Lake
stumbling.
Washington house was like a much more modern looking house, wasn't it? And it had a
Yeah,
better
yeah.
view, I think, even than that
And a
one.
rooftop like a deck thing
Yeah,
that
I don't think they were there for very long. I'm not sure
no,
why they
no.
moved. Yeah.
See, I
Yeah.
I would only really realize that recently because the last time that I saw Kurt, he gave me a few phone numbers. He talked about moving. He was moving into a new house.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
and
he,
I always get
did he
confused because it sounded like he said carnation or from.
Yeah.
I never really. I was always hoped to be able to get a hold of him at that point, and the numbers never worked.
Oh
I think
yeah.
somebody answered at one point and said that Kurt wasn't there. Um,
Michelle, can I say one of the numbers or
Oh
no?
yeah, of course. Go for it. Yeah.
Was one of the numbers that you remember 883-1980?
was it on that? I
I
have.
had a little slip that it was back, I think it was in the 89. Yeah.
Hey, Patrick, while John's looking for that, did the dog, I'm going to show you a picture, but did you watch the podcast we did with the security guard? And he talked
No.
about a dog that was at the property. It looked almost like a little German Shepherd. Does that ring a
Yeah,
bell?
okay,
It
yeah,
was
yeah,
named
yeah.
Mayonnaise.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that ringing a bell?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Oh God, I cannot believe I couldn't remember that.
Okay, so do you know whose dog that
No,
was? Because we were all trying to
No,
figure out whose dog Mayonnaise was. Okay.
no idea.
well,
Okay, interesting.
the numbers that he gave me were 206-362-0641. That says home.
Hmm.
And then he gave me another number because he was like, well, I want to give you another number to be able to get a hold of me because I don't know when we're going to have we're going to be
Yeah,
whatever.
totally.
He's in the process of moving. So that was December 14th when
Okay.
of 1993.
No, okay. So this
That
is a
was
lot
when, yeah.
later.
And then the
Oh,
other
okay.
number was Michael Mijel. He was like a manager, and it was two 213-850. He was like someone that worked for Geffen.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I had a 206 or I yeah, 206-883-1980 was the number I had that worked in the like from 89 or 90 somewhere around there to just for a while it worked. But I remember I found it, and that was when he verbally was giving me the number, and he spelled his name with the D. That little brat. He spelled it with the D. I totally took him seriously. I wrote it down Kurdt. And I totally didn't know he was kind of messing around. And just like later, I kind of called him out on that. I'm like, you actually spelled your name with the D to me originally. He's like, yeah, I know. I was just having fun. But yeah, and on this, don't you think he was so much more of a funny, kind, relaxed, fun person than people tend to think? They tend to think of this dour, depressed, blah, blah, blah. But
Well,
I saw him as very funny and kind.
I think that would depend on who he was hanging out with. I mean, when we were
Sure.
hanging out, it was like actually it wasn't really a funny. We were just kind of like actually it was just kind of like hanging out, watching videos, talking a
Yeah.
little bit, or going on
Yeah.
a walk downtown. I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't. I don't remember actually Kurt ever being really that funny or laughing around me. But remember, it wasn't
Hmm.
funny times. It's not like
Sure.
I mean, we had no money. Literally, like one of the times we were hanging out, we shared like the last piece of frozen pizza,
Yeah.
in the refrigerator, and then he got, he ended up getting in the mail. He got a royalty check for like
Oh,
$18, and we
oh,
went downtown and cashed it. Then we went went to um, someplace downtown Olympia and ended up getting. I think he got like another little pizza, and I had a piece or whatever.
oh.
But yeah, I mean, it was like it
I
wasn't that it
feel,
wasn't like I mean I think that it just depends on I mean maybe there was something that about you guys hanging out that made him laugh and be
we
or
were
maybe
stupid.
hi, I don't
We
know.
We
He wasn't
pissed off
being
Mark
aggressive.
Lanigan really well. We pissed off Lanigan pretty good. Just
That was
every time
another thing. Yeah.
we would hang
Lanigan.
out, and Lanigan would just be like, you know, that like I don't know. Did you know Mark at all? Like
No.
I
I have
didn't
friends
really.
that knew Mark really well though. I have
I
a friend
felt
that
like
was in a band with the Screaming Trees guys.
Yeah, no
It,
matter how many times I hung out with him, I really never felt like I knew him. And like I said, I always felt like I kind of irritated him. But when Kurt and I were stupid together, and we're always just laughing about just dumb stuff, we're just sort of goofing, making jokes, and it was always like I don't know, a little improving. I can't even, I don't
it's
know.
cool.
Maybe it was us together. We definitely were kind of,
Yeah.
and Mark once said, "What's up with the Bobbsey twins?" about us to I think it was Lane Staley or someone else that was hanging out with us, and they're laughing, and Kurt and I were just like, "Whatever, we're just joking around." But I I found him very funny, but that was just my maybe he kind of needed that by that
I
time,
think
that
he had
relief.
a very tasteful wit, where
Yes.
I mean he was like to me he was anything Kurt said um was not it wasn't light. I mean it was like it was meaningful. It was
Yeah.
like something that was like
Thought out.
I mean when Kurt speaks it means something. I mean that's how there's not very many people that would take their words that so seriously. But Kurt
Yeah.
was a really really good listener, and he really
Yes.
he wouldn't speak unless what he was saying was something that was meaningful. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna fucking shoot the shit. I mean, well, shoot the shit. If he's gonna shoot the shit, it's gonna be like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's not.
It
You hear
was
that in conversations, like watching now, like if you watch him talk, I mean, it's real. Like Kurt was amazing in that way. I've said this a few times in videos, and something about Kurt that was really unique is that there was something about um, he had kind of an addictive personality, and
yeah.
I don't really know how to explain it, but people that knew him well
Hmm.
would get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I wanted to be around him. I
Yeah.
wanted to be around him.
Yeah.
I hope he felt the same about me. I mean, from what we always ended up having a good time. I mean,
Yeah.
I was kind of blown away. Like, I mean, I was probably one of the first people to hear a lot of different Nirvana songs, and he would ask me, about like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like
Yeah.
about
I got criticized
yeah,
for it, but
what
yeah,
songs did I
he,
like? What songs stuck out?
yeah,
And
he liked that I liked sappy and stuff like that, and it didn't have a title at the time, but you're right, and he always prodded, like you said, exactly, like, oh, you like that, but we wouldn't really talk about the meaning of his songs or anything like that. He would talk about my songs and the meaning of, oh, what's that lyric mean, or what are you saying here, and stuff like that. But I
interesting.
didn't really do that. It didn't really feel like, hey Kurt, so what are you saying? I didn't, and I wasn't, like I said, I had to point out to some people I was a friend, not a fan, so I didn't really go, oh, what did you mean in this song? Or, I just sort of I understood that sometimes
Well,
it's word salad and sometimes it means something to him, but it doesn't need to mean, it just is what it is. I'm a
yeah,
songwriter, so I get it, and it was
yeah, awesome.
it was just more like we just sort of got, I don't know. And another thing, I don't want to misrepresent it either. We were always zany and throwing whipped cream cans around. We were like hanging out and watching the Ren and Stimpy videos when they came out on VHS, just sitting there hanging out in my bed. And
Well,
yeah,
that'll
I
make
would
you
make,
laugh.
yeah, yeah. And like I made a potato soup one time, and man, he ate the fuck out of that thing, you know? And yes, people, he ate left-handed. Maybe he ate left-handed because I was eating left-handed, but he ate left-handed. There's people that debate this. I don't know why, but because
I
we both right-handed, both of us, because my kindergarten teacher swatted with me with a ruler. I don't know what happened to Kurt, but Jimi Hendrix, same thing. We all right-handed, all left-handed. And people get in this weird debate about left or right-handed. It's like, no, Kurt identified as left-handed, and you know.
Is that what
I
you
always
remember,
thought it
John?
was. What was that?
Did you also, I think the big debate comes from, and we won't get too much into this, but because of the shotgun, why would he utilize that with his right hand? So, John, did you also note that he was, besides writing, he was mostly left-handed?
I I didn't notice things like that really. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
I mean
You
it didn't
know,
really
But
I
yeah,
mean
I tossed a
he was
pen to him.
left-handed. I remember trying to play his guitar maybe once and going, "Oh
Yep.
shit, can't,"
Yep. Yep.
something like
I
that,
tossed a I tossed a pen to him once and he caught it with his left hand, whatever that means. So, he wrote with his
So,
right hand,
you
just like
know
me.
what like Kurt, this is something that was I always thought was really cool. There was this band I had for a while called Machine, and we were kind
Okay.
of like a heavy we're kind of somewhere between punk and metal edge, but like, very
Skinny puppy
Elvis
kind of.
influenced, Voivod influenced,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it was anyway, Kurt really liked Machine.
Yeah.
And I would give him, tapes of uh of the band, and he always really I always thought that was cool. He'd give me compliments about there's this one song that we had called The Trouble with Mr. Barlow. Mr.
Okay.
Barlow was the vampire in Salem's Lot.
yes, that's my favorite
Anyway,
Yeah.
Stephen King book.
so
That's exactly. Yeah.
the riff goes anyway, and he's like, man, I love that song. It sounds like the Munsters.
Oh, that's awesome.
And now to this day, it's like, yeah, he was right. And one of the
Oh,
last
that's
times
so
I talked to
awesome.
him, so the last three times that I talked to him
Hmm.
was after the Paramount show. I went
Yeah.
backstage and talked to him briefly, and he said, "What, man?" When I told him that when I mentioned to him that I was moving to Albuquerque, he said, "What, Machine's breaking up? What?" And like,
Oh,
yeah, well, yeah, or he says Machine's not going to be together. What's going on with Machine? And then then I saw him in Phoenix area at that show. That was when I was living in Albuquerque. We traveled there to see him play, see Nirvana play, and then of course the Salem Armory was the last time that I saw him, and that was December 14th, 1993.
hmm.
But I just went a little longer than I should. I was just trying to make the
No, you're great. You're great,
machine.
man. I loved hearing that.
Yeah.
I did think though when you mentioned it, it's possible I met you backstage at the Paramount because I think that's where I met Kim. I met Kim briefly for just a minute in passing, and maybe possibly I saw you back there.
I was
I was only
just for
back
a
there a
second.
minute.
I literally
What's that?
walked in the door. They were giving away these huge Nevermind posters. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
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 I
yeah,
actually
yeah.
thought, oh my God. I
I
wish I
wish
still
I
had
had one. Seriously. Yeah, I
Yeah.
only went back there for a second. He was like, "Hey, blah blah blah. Oh, hey, this is my sister. Hey, and this and that," and it was chaos. And
Introduced
then
me
I
to
was out.
Courtney.
What? And then I went to my seat in the
Did you
audience.
see Courtney there? He introduced me to Courtney at that backstage.
I
Courtney
I
was like
didn't.
sitting right there by him.
Yeah,
That was
I
the first
didn't
time.
see her. There were a lot of people right there, so I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just back there
really. It
for a
was like
minute.
packed. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
What did you think of
but
Courtney, John?
I didn't think anything. Literally, I just met her. As it's like when somebody introduces somebody to you. It really was like I had no idea who she was.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
no.
like other than this woman that's with Kurt and her name's Courtney. So
Yeah, right,
and
right.
it was Courtney for sure.
Did you
Um,
meet her again after that, or was that sort of
yeah,
your?
that's right. Yeah, the show, not Salem, but Tempe,
the
Arizona.
Phoenix.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
yeah. Actually, yeah, the show was in Tempe, but Tempe's part of Phoenix, and that was
Phoenix.
kind of
Oh
the
yeah.
same thing. Like he introduced me to her to Courtney again, just briefly. I mean, I had
Hey,
nothing to say about. I mean, I didn't know her. I didn't even know she was in the hole. I don't think
would
because I
that
think
Arizona show have been in a February?
the
With the Arizona show, was that maybe in a February?
that sounds No, I think it was actually I could almost look it up. It was
Hmm.
they opened for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, so it was Pearl
Oh,
Jam
so
opening the show, Nirvana, and Red Hot Chili Peppers.
because he called me from Arizona, so he would call me every year on my birthday. So my birthday is a year and a day before him, and that's actually how we met. It was just a weird thing of how we met, but so I'm a year and a day older than him. And so he would always call me every February 19th and be like, "Happy birthday, old man," and wherever he was. And he called me from Japan one year. He called me from Phoenix one year, and I don't know, I still haven't got it. So ridiculous. I still haven't looked it up. But he called me from Phoenix one year, and I just thought that'd be interesting if that happened to be the same show. So anyway.
Yeah, I don't know where. I don't think he even had. I don't know where he was living at that time. That would have
Hmm.
been like he probably was couch surfing,
Sure.
because the album he probably didn't even hadn't really
I
made
think it
much
was on
money.
tour.
That was early. I mean, that would have been like
Oh,
January of '91.
oh
Like
yeah.
maybe I think it's right around the end of December or January, literally like
Yeah.
right then, because I had just moved down there and
Sure.
would have been within the first couple
I think
months of living in
he might have
Albuquerque.
he
So
might have been. He had didn't he have that car? I don't know, he had a big red like Dodge Dart or something like that. I don't know, some sort of old car. I think he
I
had
think
some
the
old
car he had broke down at that point and was sitting in front of Chris Novoselic, and that was
Ah!
that was the end of that. In
Ah!
Tacoma, Chris lived.
Okay.
Chris
I didn't
actually
know
moved
that.
to Wallingford for a while. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't
I knew
share
that.
this. You shared the first time that you heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Well, it's weird because while they were recording it, Chris brought over a tape to the house that I was living. I lived with this band. They had moved from Hawaii to Tacoma, and I lived there
Okay.
at the house. Anyway, Chris would come over, and he brought over a copy without vocals. So the first time
Oh
I heard it, there was
wow.
no vocals on it,
Oh
and
wow.
we all
Wow.
sat around and listened to like rough takes off of, I mean, it actually it
Yeah.
wasn't that exciting
Oh,
because
okay.
there weren't any vocals on. Like I remember like a
Sure.
few songs there wasn't any vocals on it. And then what you want to hear is Kurt. I mean, I really
Sure.
wanted to hear Kurt, so I was kind of like, okay, this rocks. And I remember Chris was talking about it sounding like Godzilla. And do we think it sounds like Godzilla? I remember at some point he asked he asked us that. Yeah, it's like,
Oh
well,
my God.
I mean,
That's
it's
that's hilarious.
because the
Yep.
I like moving, but I remember him talking about does it sound like Godzilla? Anyway, yeah. But then when I actually heard the recording,
Hmm.
I did get to hear the album right before it was released. Chris brought over a copy to friend Kelly's house, and I was over there with Ryan, and we listened to so myself, Ryan, Kelly wasn't there. I think Ryan was house sitting or something. Anyway,
Hmm.
we listened to like he played the whole album, Nevermind,
Yeah.
and it was before it was released, and that
Yeah.
was interesting. And at that point, I mean, I was like, "Wow, okay, that's pretty freaking amazing."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there was only about half the songs that I hadn't heard. Most of the songs I was familiar with. You
Yeah.
know,
By the time,
I kind of
yeah.
looked out and heard. I mean, I heard like all the early versions with Chad, like literally when they got back from recording them.
Hmm.
It made me a tape. I was when I tried out for the band. Um, that's a long story again because
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, but
No, that's
so
cool. I want to hear this one. I'd
I
love that one.
yeah, so I got a copy, but then right at that point, I was going on tour with Subvert. I kind of
Okay.
felt like I pretty much had it. I was like, oh my, I'm going to be the drummer in Nirvana.
Hmm.
Because
Totally.
the because the dude that was playing the drummer of Mudhoney,
Oh,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
he had just like left the band. So I was
Mhm.
like, fuck yeah, okay. I'm gonna get back from my tour and it'll be, but like, yeah, they had already had some other people, and I remember Kurt saying they wanted somebody that sounded like John Bonham.
Yeah.
And I got to play one song with, it was kind of a second tryout for the band. The first was with just Chris, and we went through a few songs. Kurt's guitar was in the shop, so he didn't have a guitar. He did. Yeah, it was just me and
People don't
Chris.
understand how often this happened.
Yeah,
This happened all the time with Kurt. He
yeah,
always had problems with his
yeah.
guitars.
And then when we went out to Aberdeen, um, myself, Kurt, Chris, and Matt Lucan,
Uh-huh.
and Attica was playing, and the
Okay.
drummer was the very first drummer in Nirvana. Anyway, we went out there to see
Mhm.
them play, and after they got done playing, I played communication breakdown with uh,
Nice.
Chris, Kurt. Well, Kurt just sang, and
Uh-huh.
Chris played
Oh
guitar,
man.
and Matt Lucan
Oh
played bass.
man.
Now, I played the song, but
Oh man.
unfortunately, I guess I didn't rock it hard enough because it was kind of
Okay.
like a second, you know, I felt like it was kind of a second like tryout for the band or whatever,
Sure. Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah.
Uh,
The feeling you out.
yeah, and well, I'm just definitely not John Bonham, but Dave
But you know
Grohl
what? Yeah.
was.
So
No
it
doubt
so
about
it
that.
goes.
But yeah, Kurt was very specific when he said that to me. He said, "We want to find a drummer that sounds like John Bonham." I'm like,
Mhm.
I was kind of a Led Zeppelin fan back then, but not really. Like I got into Led Zeppelin and the Beatles a little bit late. I was
Yeah.
way into like early metal, like Iron Maiden and lots of punk rock and
Yeah.
bands like Motorhead, stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
goth stuff like Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus, Nick Cave and
That's
the
for sure.
Backseat, Killing Joke, which I
Killing
made
joke
that
for sure.
comment. Did you read
What's
that?
that?
That probably tripped you out when you guys I sent that comment. Do you
Yeah.
know?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, totally. I teased Kurt about it. We played that song. You're like, hey man, what's up with this? He's like, fuck off.
you got to
He's
watch
just
that
like, fuck
documentary.
off, man.
It's crazy because this is after Kurt passed away.
Uh,
It would have been a few years. Uh, there's this point in the film where the singer Killing Joke has freaking Dave Grohl in a headlock. He's like, "Where's our royalties, man? Where's our royalties?" And there really was like an issue. Like they could have gone to court over it or whatever. I
yeah,
got
but
the movie, and
Boston could have sued them all, so screw that. So
I think that in the film, if I remember right, it was a while ago that I saw it. I think they actually came to an agreement, and Dave ended up playing on
oh, okay.
song or something. I got to
Yeah.
watch it again. But yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
totally fine. I did tease Kurt about that because I love that Killing Joke album. And like I mean, it's cool. I love it, but that's close. I mean, that's one of the few times we actually did a Nirvana specific discussion. We didn't really. I really do think that I was more of an oasis away from Nirvana for him. But yeah, well, I teased him occasionally about some stuff and like the Killing Joke, and then I think I made that similar joke about Boston. Anyway, I'm like, don't worry about it, man. Boston will just sue everybody. So.
oh yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
Boston has a song that's like, dun, 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 like basically, it's like, okay, it's kind of Teen Spirit. I mean, whatever. Yeah.
Everything's a ripoff. Everything is an
Yeah, yeah,
homage to something else, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Just
especially now.
muddy,
It's
muddy
nothing.
water should sue everyone.
What did John, did you watch the SNL stuff with Post Malone doing
What?
Nirvana?
No,
No. And
I missed it.
Patrick, you
Did that
haven't.
just happen? I
Yeah,
No,
for the 50th, yeah.
I knew about it. I couldn't. I
I heard
sometimes.
some Post Malone before, and I was like, ah, right. It's like, I mean, he did some Nirvana stuff, or before, and I just wasn't having it. I
Yeah.
don't
I
know.
like him okay. I think he's great, but I totally respect how much he loves Nirvana, and I'm sure, and all I saw were images of the Nirvana fans having a good time. I just personally, I just can't. It's a little close for me. So
Yeah, no, my comment there was nothing about him as a person. I know nothing about him as a person. I have
sure, yeah,
respect.
totally, yeah.
Anybody that gets up and does their you know
But yeah, I
write
couldn't do it. I
songs
couldn't do it.
with authenticity and
Mm.
and heart, right? I mean, that's a good thing. More power to anybody that does that. And covering. Um, I really should be a little more open-minded and listen. It's just hard to hear any
It is hard. It's
cover,
so hard because
you
it's
know.
like it's Kurt, and that's yeah,
If it was
that's
Francis singing, maybe I don't know, maybe that would hit me differently, but I don't know.
yeah.
I
I'm
don't
trying
know.
to
I
think.
don't, do you like
Nirvana.
any Beatles covers? Because there aren't very many that I like. I mean, they're just are bands that I don't think can really be covered, and I think Nirvana is one of them,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
The Kim Gordon performance the other day was pretty cool. I watched a little of that. But again, I just can't. And I love Sonic Youth. I love Kim. I love Sonic Youth. But no, I just couldn't. I'm like I'm no, it just short circuits my brain and
It's, it's funny.
yeah,
I did a
gets sad.
I did a cover of Sappy on piano, and I put it on
Oh,
my YouTube, just because I wanted to do I wanted to do a try to do a song on piano, a cover song, and I
mm,
couldn't think of anything right offhand. And for some reason, I was like, I don't know. I mean, what if I could do Sappy? So I actually pulled it off, and it felt
ooh.
pretty good. I don't know if anybody. It seems like people. I don't know. I guess liked it, or whatever. But yeah, doing a Nirvana cover is a tough one. I've tried it a couple times. It's funny, we're talking about Nirvana covers. I'm like, well, you know, have
I'm
you
gonna
covered a Nirvana song?
Oh, I have to be honest. I just
Really?
recorded this weekend.
I
This
can't
weekend,
listen to anybody else's, but I can. I don't want to
this,
sound like a hypocrite.
oh, I know. This weekend, I just
My cover's the
recorded.
best. Listen to it. No, I'm kidding.
I recorded a bunch of demos, and I recorded two covers, and one cover was a Nirvana song, and I was very nervous about it before it, and I actually pulled it off. My engineer friend agrees. He's also was a Nirvana fan as a kid, and he's like, "Actually, I'm amazed you did it." And I I'm in a compromised territory here because I don't want to reveal what song it was because it's a present for someone in the future, and oh boy, I've already said too much anyway. If they see this, and they will, so.
Oh
So,
shit.
uh,
Oh
but
man.
no, 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 but that's cool. But the fact is I did this cover and I have avoided doing anything Nirvana like the plague other than practicing at home.
Yeah.
I have practiced this song since 91. So I've known this song thoroughly. And I just play a lot like when I'm warming up before I'm gonna work on my own music, I'll just play to a record like XTC or the Kinks or the Who or whatever, and occasionally even our friend Kurt. And Yeah, and so I did do this cover, and it's I'll say this to the people that are watching. This cover will come out someday, and it'll be available. And I will humiliate myself to the world by putting it out there. So,
I think we can't wait. John, can I bring you back to, I said I think we can't wait. I know we can't wait. And I have some guesses as to what the song is, but I'll just keep them. I'll keep
oh
them a
no,
secret.
you're totally wrong. You're
I'm
absolutely
sure I
wrong.
wouldn't know. No.
No,
Um,
you had no idea.
of course
I
not.
actually forgot. I did another Nirvana cover too. That's crazy. Anyway.
You
Okay,
know,
I'll say it. I'm done teasing. I did a version of Aneurysm, and
Yeah.
Aneurysm is very close to me. And basically, the agreement between me and my friend is it has to be uh absolutely on 10, or I'm not even. We're going to erase it. Like basically, like, and I found it within me, and I absolutely unleashed and. It felt good, and that literally just happened a few days ago. And I've not this stuff has been very like at arm's length for me. No way would I do this. I wouldn't have even considered doing this. I think some of this has to do with the freedom I've felt since coming on the podcast, and a lot of weight's been lifted off of me by talking about Kurt, and people being very receptive, like, oh, it's cool, and and yeah, it's
Yeah.
so that led to this cover, and this cover's for someone very special. So, yeah. Anyway,
Sorry,
so there.
Michelle. See, you could actually we could probably do this every month and keep talking.
I
I mean, this
love
calls
Oh,
it.
totally, all the
Yeah.
time.
Well, you
Yeah.
know what? I
we
have
like,
one more thing that I want to ask you, John, and then I'm gonna have to go. My
yeah,
beast over here, my little dog is losing it, but I'm
you gotta go.
happy to if you guys want to talk a little bit more, feel free. I can just pop off and you guys can keep chatting. But sorry, go ahead, John.
Go on.
Oh, I just, when you said you really there was a sort of attraction to being around Kurt, like maybe he shone a little bit differently than other people. Patrick and I have talked about this a little bit and about, highly sensitive people and how they affect the people around them, where they are, they see people's feelings differently, they see the world differently. Things affect them more. So, things affect highly
Yeah.
sensitive people. I mean, most artists are sensitive. That's where they're getting their input from to be painters or songwriters, etc. Is that something that you've looked into? Do you think that's a fair
Well,
assessment of Kurt?
I'd like to use the word empathic
Hmm.
because
Yes.
I mean I think that's one reason we got along so fine, so
Hmm.
well,
Yeah.
because I found in my life that truly empathic people I do connect with, and Kurt was definitely one of those people, and no doubt about it. I think when it comes to the relationship that he had with Courtney, you have an extreme narcissist, no doubt about it. There,
Yeah,
I mean, everything being a covert and an overt,
Yeah.
whichever she wanted
absolutely.
to be, and be extremely a genius in her own way,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
and
very smart.
and
Yep.
I like hearing what you said, Patrick, about when um, when there was that moment that she hit Kurt's hand, and Kurt, you were having it was a challenge for you to explain how you didn't want to say cower, but see, that was actually strength through
Yeah.
being for Kurt through being empathic, because he's not going to react in a
Yeah.
violent way. He's not.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not Kurt. The only time I ever saw Kurt like get kind of crazy is when he was really drunk. That was it. I mean, like literally. But we won't
Yeah.
go into that. We can
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yep.
um,
We'll
yeah.
talk
So
about the rebar some other day.
yeah. So yeah. The I think that's a very real thing, and truly truly extremely empathic, creative people are rare, and they're people in life and the world that really can make profound changes. You know, something that I've noticed about the Beatles, I think all of them were empathic. All of them.
That's a great observation, and maybe that's why there's never been another band like the Beatles.
You know, and you look at it.
Kurt would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like something that's, you know, you can't really like very easily see that, and you know, it's hard. Anyway, yeah. So there's that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go feed my dog. Sorry, Patrick.
I was just gonna say,
yes, please. No,
we would feed off each other. This is very much like you said, the empathy, the empathic thing. Like, definitely, he would feed off of my hyper emotion or whatever, my good vibe, and we would bounce back and forth. That was that's very good, very accurate. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta head out too, but let's have another conversation. I would love to talk again.
Totally. I love this. It was great, John, man. That was awesome.
Great to meet you. Happy birthday.
Hang out with me for 2 minutes, guys. At the end, we'll hit end record, and then let's just talk about what we're going to do tomorrow here in 2 seconds. Perfect. Sure. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming, both of you. It was so fun to be watching your first kind of meeting and be a party to that. So I feel like I missed out on the beer and the cigarettes. You know, we're kind of at a virtual pub, but here we are. So thank you so much. We will do this again soon. And perfect.